Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu Mavid Vishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. We'll chant Srimad Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, verses 25 to 30.
दैवमेवापरे यज्ञं योगिनः पर्युपासते ब्रह्माज्ञावपरे यज्ञं यज्ञो नैवोपजुह्वति श्रोत्रादीनीन्द्रियाण्यन्ये संयमाग्निषु जुह्वति शब्दादीन् विषयानन्ये इन्द्रियाग्निषु जुह्वति सर्वाणीन्द्रियकर्माणि प्राणकर्माणि चापरे आत्मसंयमयोगाग्नौ जुह्वति ज्ञानदीपिते द्रव्ययज्ञास्तपोयज्ञाः योगयज्ञास्तथा परे स्वाध्यायज्ञानयज्ञाश्च यतयः संशितव्रताः अपाने जुह्वति प्राणं प्राणे पानं तथा परे प्राणापानगतिरुद्ध्वा प्राणायामपरायणाः अपरे नियताहाराः प्राणान् प्राणेषु जुह्वति सर्वेप्येते यज्ञविदः यज्ञक्षपितकल्मषाः.
In this chapter 4 of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, entitled as Jnana Karma Sannyasa Yoga. I think somebody's mic is on. Please put yourself in mute. So, Jnana Karma Sannyasa Yoga, the yoga of renunciation of action in wisdom. In this chapter, we are now in the portion where he is giving 12 yajnas, are called as 12 sadhanas. Like I said, the fundamental knowledge, the real knowledge that Vedanta wants to give is that there is only divinity. It is the divinity that is manifested as this entire universe. That one consciousness, what we call as pure consciousness or Brahman, is what is appearing as the world. Meaning each one of us are essentially that divinity, infinity, paripurnatvam, complete. Now, this is covered by Vasanas. We are covered by ignorance, and as a result, we have imagined this individuality, ego. Ego, somebody very nicely explains it as edging God out. E-G-O. So we have edged God out and have projected this individuality. Vedanta is saying that we are not individuals, we are indivisible. Just before the start of the class here, Anjuji asked, Madam, why don't you come and sit in the front? She said, I'm having cough, so I'd rather sit here. So during Corona, first of all, we could have not had this class. In fact, my class over here got stopped in Magnolia during Corona. Then we got into this online and all that. So now, if somebody sneezes during Corona, everybody runs away. Why? The part of the air breath that was in me now becomes part of you. The part of breath that was in you becomes part of me. We think we are separated. I think I am this personality from head to toe. This is my assumption. But actually, we are interconnected. You understand? What is part of you becomes part of me. What is part of me becomes part of you. Everything gets recycled. We are interconnected. Isn't it? We are like fishes in water. We are like birds in air. We think we are separate. So this false notion with which we have separated ourselves is the root cause of all our suffering. We are imagining ourselves to be the wave, while we are not really separate from the ocean. And the wave and ocean are essentially water. You understand? So when you identify with the wave, this individual personality, you are called Jiva. When you identify with the total ocean, you are called as Ishvara. And both the Ishvara and Jiva essentially are nothing but Brahman, the pure consciousness. So Advaita Vedanta says, Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya Jivo Brahmaivana Paraha. This Jiva is essentially Brahman alone, nothing else. And now we are covered by ignorance, and as a result, this individuality is assumed, and the individuality is limited. As a result, a lot of desires to feel complete, paripurna, full. So we go on fulfilling desires, and we fulfill one, we create more, we are caught in this samsara. So therefore, what is the solution? To gain the knowledge, realize that I am Brahman. You understand? Now, for this to happen, even now we spoke about it. You are Brahman, not the individual and all that. What has happened because of that? Nothing. Once this class is over, immediately we'll say what is there for lunch. You understand? And immediately we'll pick up arguments with somebody else. Nothing much is going to happen overnight. Isn't it? Information has come. But why this information is not bringing about the transformation? Because the inner purity is still not there. Like I said last week, when you sprinkle water on a hot plate, it evaporates. So our mind needs to be purified. So we need to do various sadhanas to purify the mind. And to the extent our mind is purified, to that extent the knowledge can be gained and it can be retained, and we can establish ourselves in that knowledge and we can see the transformation. So in this, we have 12 yajnas, 12 sadhanas, 12 activities which mentioned to convert them into worship, starting from our receipt to response, receipt, reaction and response. Ideally, what is the idea? To basically purify the mind and then gain the knowledge. Through the knowledge, bring about the transformation. That's all. So, we have seen up to verse number 28. We have seen Deva Yajna, limited goal, Brahma Yajna, absolute goal. Working for limited goal, working for absolute goal. Working for self-development, working for self-enlightenment. You understand? First, it has to be self-development. Let me become self-sufficient. Let me do my things myself rather than becoming dependent on others as much as possible. You understand? So self-sufficiency, self-reliance and all that, purification, then knowledge, enlightenment. Then he says, for this purpose, we have to do sense control, right? Vishaya Grahana Yajna. What sense contact can be allowed? which will help me to enhance my peace, happiness, and freedom. You understand? And what senses should not be allowed? Dhamma which will unnecessarily disturb my peace, freedom. You understand? So what all I need to deny? So Vishaya Grahana Yajna, what I can allow, Dhamma Yajna, what I should control. And then mind control, called as Shama Yajna. You can restrain from things from outside to go in, but there are already things inside. What are you going to do about that? They are going to disturb you, no? You said, today I'm not going to meet anybody, I'll be sitting quiet. You know, one fellow thought, being in the world, he gets disturbed. You know, so he said, let me go to some secluded place. So he found some secluded place deep in the jungle somewhere. And there he sat down in meditation. He closed his eyes and he started meditating. As he's meditating, he heard some sound of anklet. One lady was passing by. She was wearing the anklet. He heard the sound. That disturbed him. So next day he said, I will not keep my ears open also. She used earplugs and closed it and started meditating. And she passed by the same time. Probably she's going somewhere. Same time she goes. So now what happened? She was having some flowers on her head. And that fragrance came to him. So he got disturbed. So he said he plucked the nose also next day. Now he sat down in meditation. Now in the mind the thought came, this is the time usually she goes, isn't it? You understand? So the thing is, you can close all your senses, but there is already the thoughts in your head. What are you going to do about that? So that also needs to be controlled. That's called Shama Yajna. He said with Jnanam, with wisdom, you analyze, you discriminate. With Viveka Shakti, you get rid of that. So, Deva Yajna, Brahma Yajna, Vishagrahana Yajna, Dhamma Yajna, Shama Yajna. And then last week we saw 4 more. Dravya Yajna. Now, the first one is receipt. Then, reaction. Shama Yajna is reaction. Sense control is receipt control. Shama Yajna is reaction control. Then comes response. Today our responses are all selfish, self-centered. And you find a selfish person, self-centered person, egoistic person, all the time agitated, mentally disturbed. You understand? Therefore, Yajna means what? It should be unselfish and selfless. So now, the first one at the material level, called as Dravya Yajna, called as Dhanam. You are sacrificing your material wealth and kindling others' material wealth, called Dravya Yajna. This is the response. Now, as I told you, in all this, what is the idea? To minimize the ego, minimize the desires, so that the awareness from within shines forth. See, please understand this. We are covered by ignorance, the desires. As the desires reduce, the awareness shines forth. Isn't it? So therefore, all these sadhanas, all these yajnas must kindle the awareness, removing the covering vasanas. So dhanam, wealth which is part of you now, right? You keep checking in your apps. Nowadays everything has come in app. Click the app, you know how much bank balance is there, right? So you know, okay, this much is there in me. And tomorrow, for something, some bulk payment has to go and it is gone. Automatic payment. And when you check, oh, part of me is gone. Isn't it? You feel like that. So when you consciously rise above the attachment to wealth and sacrifice it to kindle others' wealth, you are sacrificing your ego to that extent. It's part of you that you are sacrificing. You understand? So dhanam is one of the most essential spiritual practice that is emphasized. In fact, in the 18th chapter, Sri Krishna says, he says, according to him, yajna, dana, tapa should not be given up. Yajna, dana, tapa. So, He's here talking about as dhanam itself as a yajna, dravya yajna. Then tapo yajna. Tapo yajna is where you sacrifice your physical efforts to uplift somebody else's physical well-being. You understand? It is slightly better than the material. Then comes yoga yajna, where you sacrifice your emotional and intellectual knowledge to uplift others' emotional level and intellectual well-being. This is called yoga yajna. Then comes swadhyaya jnana yajna. In fact, of all the four that he is mentioning here, including the swadhyaya, earlier he already mentioned three. Compared to all these three, swadhyaya jnana yajna is the highest. Why? Because when you sit down, study, reflect on the scriptures, the knowledge given by the scriptures or the message given by the guru, reflect over it, you destroy your ignorance and kindle the self from within. The more and more you get closer and closer to the self, the core, the divinity within, the greater the light you give to others. Thereafter, you don't have to put in any effort consciously to be of some service. Thereafter, everything you do will be of service only. See, there is a story that Mr. Sun, S-U-N, Sun God, never married, he's a bachelor. So somebody suggested there's a beautiful girl called Nisha, darkness. You should get married to her. He said, Acha, she's really that beautiful. Let me see her. And when he got closer to her, what happened? He couldn't see because there is no darkness. Wherever the sun goes, there will only be light. So the more aware you become, anything you do will be service. You understand? There is no selfishness possible. There is no ego possible thereafter. So swadhyaya jnana yajna, in fact, to the extent you have discovered the self, to that extent only you can communicate the self. Only the person who's discovered the self can really communicate the self. Rest of them cannot communicate. You understand? Because everybody else will be talking from their understanding rather than from their direct experience. So, swadhyaya jnana yajna is the highest. Sitting down and getting rid of your ego, merging the individuality in the total. Not only that, this is something very interesting. I don't know whether I mentioned this in this class, in some other class, I'm sure I've mentioned it. I was in a different place, different country, lecturing for a few years. That time, one other Swamiji had come to lecture there. So some of my class members said, please come for that lecture also. So I went there. And that Swamiji was mentioning this particular episode of Swami Ram Tirtha. So I'm not sure whether it really happened. Must have really happened. That's why that Swami mentioned. Apparently, Swami Ram Tirtha, I think he gave up his body in 1903, more than 100 years ago. Swami Ram Tirtha, when he went to US for lectures, one day he was casually walking by, maybe on the roadside, I don't know. Police find him for bringing Indian laziness to America. Okay. And this was reported in the newspaper. After a few days, the same Ram Tirtha's name appeared in the newspaper for coming first in the open marathon conducted there in US. Same person. They announced some marathon race for everybody open. Anybody can, participate. He also ran and he came first. It was reported. So that Swami told. What I am trying to tell from this is, you see, compared to a person who is extremely tamasic, lazy, indifferent, who doesn't do anything, and therefore there is no productivity, another person who out of desires act to fulfill those desires, he or she is more productive. Okay. Because one fellow is sleeping, other fellow is walking or running. Obviously, he'll cover distance. But this fellow who is walking or running, the second fellow, the Rajasic type, propelled by desire, in his head, what is there? I must get that fruit. I must get that result. I must get that result. Isn't it? And that is going to make me happy. And that is going to make me more peaceful. Enjoy my life. These thoughts are there in his head. Are you with me? So it's like a person who is running, keeping some 20-30 kilograms of weight on his head, or maybe 50-60 kilograms of weight on his head. Therefore, we say in Vedanta, when you act to fulfill a desire, in fact, it is an obstacle for you in fulfilling that itself. Now you come to this person, enlightened person. Enlightened person has achieved the self by removing the ignorance, knowing that I am the ocean and not the wave. There is nothing lacking. Now that person, inside, he or she has certain nature, talent. It could be singing, it could be dancing, it could be engineering, it could be medicine, it could be talking, it could be anything. In the case of Swami Ramtita, it was talking. In the case of Saint Tyagaraja, it was singing. You understand? So everybody has Mahaprabhu, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, singing. You understand? So everybody's talent is there. The innate nature is there. Now that they have realized the self, the innate nature, with no obstacle, manifests. Like the peacock dancing or the nightingale singing. They are not singing for name, fame, power, position, family, status, money. Do you understand? Therefore, their productivity is far superior. You understand? And there is no compromise they are going to do when they work, and they are not working for anybody. They are not slaves to anybody. Do you get this? I think I mentioned the story of Tansen and Haridas ji in this class. So Haridas ji is singing for Allahu Akbar. Tansen is singing for Emperor Akbar. So we are all Rajasic people singing for some Akbars. You understand? Whereas the self-realized soul sings for Allahu Akbar. You understand? So that productivity is unbelievable. So from that angle we say, that's why I gave the example of Swami Ramtita. He is not interested in coming first or second. Marathon race is there. I also love to run. That's it. And he came first. If he had come second also, it would have not mattered. It would have not mattered to him. In fact, it is said in the story of Lord Buddha, when he was Siddhartha, he was a prince. So he participated in a chariot race. And he was coming first. And there was another guy desperately coming to participating, running, driving his chariot to come first. Somehow trying to defeat Siddhartha. So this Siddhartha, almost he came to the final line. He just have to cross that. At that time he saw this fellow so desperate, he pulled his reins, allowed that fellow to come first. For him it doesn't matter. The idea is to participate. The idea is to enjoy, be in it. Forget the reward. And they produce maximum. So that's why he says, Swadhyaya Gnana Yajna. Different level of response. That happens when you sit and study, reflect, analyze, and then through meditation, get rid of the ego. 9 yajnas we completed. Now we have to do the 10th yajna, that is called as Prana Apana Yajna, and then the 11th one is Pranayama Yajna, and the 12th one is Ahara Niyama Yajna. 3 more yajnas. So let's get on to verse number 29.
Apane juhvati pranam prane panam tatha pare प्राणापानगतिरुद्ध्वा प्राणायामपरायणाः.
Yet others offers as sacrifice prana into apana and apana into prana, restraining. Some are absorbed in pranayama. Now, you may get scared. What is this? Prana, apana, apana, prana, and all that. All you need to understand is 10th yajna is offering the incoming breath, kindling the outgoing breath. Offering the outgoing breath, kindling the incoming breath. See, the individual is analyzed from one particular angle as 5 sheets over the divinity. Annamaya kosha, food sheath. Pranamaya kosha, vital air sheath. Manomaya kosha, mental sheath. Vijnanamaya kosha, intellectual sheath. Anandamaya kosha, bliss sheath. All these sheaths are covering the Atma as it were. I have to say covering as it were because they cannot really cover them. To explain this, Adi Shankaracharya beautifully in Atma Bodha says, from the angle that you are sitting in, when you see, it appears as if the clouds have covered the sun. Can the clouds cover the sun? Strictly speaking. But you are sitting here and see the clouds have covered. Isn't it? So you say clouds have covered the sun. Can they really cover? No. So you say it appears as though the clouds have covered the sun. Similarly, the fact that we are so preoccupied by these 5 sheets, the Atma is covered to us. So we say these are sheath. Really speaking, they have no way of doing anything to Atma. They don't disturb. So now, this prana, vital air sheath, is that which is between Annamaya kosha, the food sheath. The physical body is called as food sheath because this body is firstly produced by the food digested by the parents. Secondly, it is maintained by the food consumed by you. And it is food for the other species. Isn't it? As we are sitting in the class, mosquitoes come and feed on us. Not here, some other place. It happens sometimes. Isn't it? So, we are the food. The body is the food. So, Annamaya kosha. Then comes pranas, the vital air sheath. Pancha pranas we talk about. Prana, apana, samana, vyana, udana and all that. So, they are the vital air sheath. And after that is the mind sheath. So, pranas are in between the food sheath and the mind sheath. So, when our mind gets disturbed, our body gets disturbed through the pranas. Because pranas also get disturbed. Our digestion goes for a toss. As a result, body becomes weak. Isn't it? So, you see, even in a nice air-conditioned place, a person starts sweating when he is stressed. You understand? Psychosomatic disease. So, mind gets affected, body gets affected. And in the body, supposing the food goes haywire, the pranas goes haywire, then the mind, it is not conducive for the mind also. Mind also is disturbed. The person is very hungry and he can easily get irritated. Isn't it? That's why we don't keep class from 1 to 2. You understand? So the thing is, it is in between. The pranas are in between the Annamaya kosha and the Manomaya kosha. Then comes intellectual sheath, which is much subtler than the mind. Then comes Anandamaya kosha, the Vasana sheath. Then Atma. So the pranas actually sustain our activities. You understand? The pranas sustain our activities. So we talked about receipt, reaction, response. If all this needs to be sustained, we need to do yajna at the prana level also. Otherwise, our pranas will go haywire. And when pranas go haywire, everything goes haywire. You understand? So first he talks about some people doing prana apana yajna, or you can simply call it as nadi shuddhi, where you breathe in and breathe out. You don't really bother about how much count you are breathing in, how much count you are breathing out. You just focus on the breathing. In fact, some people say, don't worry about breathing out. Just focus when you breathe in. Some people say, don't bother about breathing in. Focus out, breathing out. All these things they keep saying. But the idea is what? With awareness, being focused on the breath. When the awareness is focused on the breath, you see, to that extent, your mind also starts becoming calm. It is conducive. You understand? So he says, prana apana yajna. Incoming breath is sacrificed into the outgoing breath. Outgoing breath is sacrificed in the incoming breath. All this is done with awareness. Are you with me? This, when the pranas are taken care of, they sustain the life's activity very well. So they convert that into yajna. It gets, see, the moment you do it with awareness, see it as a sacrifice, then what is happening? The mind is getting controlled. When the mind is controlled, the divinity shines through. Ego reduces. So it becomes yajna. Then comes pranayama yajna. Pranayama means what? Control of breath. Now, in pranayama, now see, nadi shuddhi that I spoke just now, anybody can do, it's okay. This pranayama, if you want to do, you better learn from somebody who knows about it. Don't get into that. Because in pranayama, there is something called as purakam, there is something called as rechakam, and there is something called as kumbhakam. Don't get scared. Purakam means you inhale the breath from outside and you fill your lungs. It's called purakam. Then you exhale and empty your lungs. That's called rechakam. Then when you inhale, you retain there the breath for some time. That's called kumbhakam. When you exhale, you retain there. That is also called kumbhakam. One, when you inhale and retain, it's called antara kumbhakam. When you exhale and retain, it's called bahya kumbhakam. Now, this, when you retain the breath, you have to be very, very careful. Can't play with pranayama. If you do wrongly, it can have adverse effects on your body as well as on your mind. Are you with me? But this pranayama, when you practice learning from a proper teacher, proper guru, I don't know. I'm saying if you learn from a proper guru and practice it, you regulate your breath. Regulation happens, which brings what? Inner strength. You understand? So, this particular yajna develops inner strength by regulating your pranas. So, in fact, if you go to Patanjali Muni's Ashtanga Yoga, he starts with yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, samadhi. 8 steps. First, yama and niyama. Yama means what all you have to control yourself from not do. Niyam means what all you have to do. Disciplines. And then asana, sitting down and doing your exercises. Then pranayama. Then comes pratyahara. Pratyahara means sense control, you can say. Then dharana, concentration. You can say mind control. Then comes dhyana, meditation. Then comes samadhi, where the mind gets established in the divinity, becomes absolutely peaceful. So 8 steps. So this pranayama is a very interesting regulation at the pranic level, which is very conducive for the mind's regulation. You understand? But it has to be properly learnt and practiced. Don't play with it. If you do wrongly, you will get into trouble. Should not do that. Agree with me? But some people do this to develop inner strength. Now, this pranayama yajna that he's talking about is practiced by few people for gaining the inner strength. For what purpose that inner strength? Again, to get rid of the ego, the mind's vasanas, and realize the self. See, when it is done for realization of the self, then it becomes yoga. Otherwise, it becomes boga. That's all. Same thing. Where is it directed? I told you, whether you are sitting in the movie theater or in the temple, your focus should be on divinity. If somebody is in the theater but his thinking is on divinity, he is spiritual. Somebody who is in the temple but thinking of the movie is not spiritual. Where are the thoughts? When it is dedicated for that, it becomes yoga, it becomes yajna. So, prana, apana, yajna, 10th one, and pranayama, yajna, 11th one. Two yajnas were covered in this particular shloka number 29. So we have covered 9 plus 2, 11. One more is left, 12th one. Continue.
अपरे नियताहाराः प्राणान् प्राणेषु जुह्वति सर्वेप्येते यज्ञविदः यज्ञक्षपितकल्मषाः.
Others with regulated food offers prana into pranas. Pranan praneshu juvati. All these are no words of sacrifice, and by sacrifice have destroyed their sins. See, what he's saying here is the 12th yajna is called as ahara niyama yajna. Also, it's called the yajna of external activities, basically bringing in control over all the ahara intakes, regulation of the food intake. Now, food need not be restricted only to the food you consume. You are seeing, you're consuming sights, you're consuming sound, everything needs to be regulated. In the 6th chapter, he says, meditation is not for the one who eats too much. Meditation is not for the one who sleeps too much. One particular class, I'm talking about late 90s and early 2000, I had one Gita class. And the timing of the class was 8:30 to 10 p.m. There was a reason for it, so they wanted to have it that time. And this class was already going on, conducted by somebody, one of my colleagues. He handed it over to me, so I continued that for a while. And I, couldn't have dinner and go and conduct the class. So I said, I will have the dinner after 10 o'clock. It was becoming too late and all the problems were there. Also, what I noticed, most of the class members have finished their dinner and they are coming and sitting in the class. And AC is going full blast. You understand? Very cool room. All of us are sitting. And then I'm coming and starting 8:30. Om Sahana Bhavatu, and chanting and all that. Already I'm seeing few people sleeping. And then when I'm talking also, a few people say, I'm such a boring lecturer. Maybe I should stop talking. People have eaten nice curd rice with potato fry. So serotonin is nicely secreting and they are falling off to sleep. When I'm chanting, it's even more conducive for them to fall off to sleep. So I slowly convinced them. Somehow I was able to convince. Initially they said, no, not possible. I said, let's try. It's up to you guys. Let's try. Because they all go to work early. So I said, let's try 5:45 to 7 a.m. No way. Because they leave at 7:30, 7:45 to work that early. It was another country. So I said, let's try. If you can't do it, we'll leave it. So there were about 25 people in the class. They all said, okay. And they came and they started enjoying that much better. So why I'm saying is, he says meditation is not for the one who eats too much, not for the one who eats too little. See, please understand, upavas is part of tapas. Tapas means something that should increase your energy. You understand? Not something that decreases your energy, destroys you. That's not tapas. Tapas, as I told you, has two aspects to it. One is to conserve the energy that is getting dissipated in the lower channel and direct the conserved energy towards the higher. This is called tapas. You consciously deny yourself certain things to build strength, not to that extent where you become weak. Or do that for what purpose? Why you want to gain that strength? To destroy somebody else? No. Then that becomes rakshasic. You understand? Rakshasas do tapas. For what? I want to become so powerful. Why? I can buy that other company. Swallow this, swallow that. So that only I exist. I am the Hiranyakashipu. I am God. Everybody must say Namaskar to Hiranyakashipu. You understand? So, this kind of tapas is rakshas, not divine. Tapas means what? You build that inner strength for your spiritual growth, for the well-being of everyone, especially your spiritual growth. So, upavas, when you bring in food control, it's called upavas. What does upavas means? Upa means near, vas means reside. That's called upavas. Upavas means what? Residing near. Residing near whom? Ishvara. It's called residing near God. During Shivratri, people want to keep awake. Okay? So you're singing bhajans and all that and keeping awake is okay. Supposing you're watching 4-5 action thriller movies. Because the idea is somehow, or romance movies, somehow you want to keep awake. Some horror movie, you watch 4-5 movies, you watch whole night. And next day, you feel, I have kept awake the whole night of Shiva. What nonsense is this? That is not upavas. So there are people who go through this Navaratra upavas. Isn't it? Now, before that upavas actually starts, they indulge. Because they're going to miss for 9 days. And 10th day, again indulge. That means what? The whole 9 days, you've been frustrating yourself, maybe thinking of the food only. You might as well eat. That is not upavas. Upavas means residing near divinity, residing near higher, which enhances your inner strength. Do you understand? So here, regulation, when you talk about regulation of food, they say always parimitam, means moderate. Not too much, not too little. And something that is good for you, hitam. Not something that is not good for you. And then, amedhyam, pure. Make sure what you consume is pure, what you consume is good for you, and what you consume is in moderation, which enhances your strength to be able to do other tapas. Are you with me? See, even this class, we have fixed for 1 hour. Maximum we can go is 1 hour 15 minutes. After that, your intellect starts losing its elasticity. If you too much do it, then it becomes difficult for you to go into other kind of activities. You understand? Therefore, we say don't overdo anything. In everything there has to be regulation, including regulation. Everything in moderation, including moderation. So he says, others with regulated food, meaning regulated intake, offer pranas, life breaths, into pranas, life breaths. These are technical. What he's trying to say is, when you consciously control and increase your inner energy, inner strength, that is sacrificed for external activity. You understand? External activity. You develop the inner strength for what purpose? To serve, to act. So, receipt, reaction, response. The whole cycle is complete here with this yajna. So, what he's saying is, this kind of thing they do, they sacrifice The inner strength gained through regulation for external activity. And then he says, all these are knowers of sacrifice. All these people know how to sacrifice. They all are well versed in sacrifice. All these people means what? All the people who do all these 12 yajnas. Understand? They understand how to convert action into worship. That's what he means. All these are knowers of sacrifice, and by sacrifice have destroyed their sins. Yajna kshita kalmashaha. They have destroyed the sins. Kalmasha means sin. Sin means mental agitations. When our action produces desires or increases desires and agitates us, it is called sin. Sin is in the reaction, not in the action, we say. You do something and it comes back and hits you with agitation. That's called sin. Sin technically means that which increases vasanas. Agree with me? So all these people, they do sacrifice. They are all knowers of sacrifice. They know how to do the sacrifice. By sacrifice, what do they do? What do they achieve? Reduction of vasanas. By sacrifice, they are not increasing vasanas. See, foolishly if you do, like I said, 9 days ke baad, you have increased desire for food more. What kind of tapas is that? You were better off before. You were eating only 3 meals. Now you are eating 5 meals. So, it should not be leading you to frustration and increasing your vasanas. It should lead you to decreasing your vasanas. So that's what he's saying. All these people are knowers of sacrifice, and by sacrifice, yajnakshapita kalmashaha, their sins are all destroyed. See, the idea is, while you are acting, you're reducing vasanas. That's the spiritual practice. When you're doing something, reduction of vasanas are happening, not increasing. See, we are all like Abhimanyu. Abhimanyu knew how to enter the Chakravyuh. He didn't know how to get out. So we all say, I'll do this, I'll do that. But we get involved in that itself. See, Swamiji always talks about sense of value and sense of proportion. Many people may not have any values. Some may have values, but they will not have sense of proportion. If the sense of proportion is missing, then you cannot even call it as a value, because it agitates you. You understand? So values are important, but it needs to be proportioned by your intellect. When the awareness is not there, when you either do it mechanically, when you get involved in it mechanically, rather than getting the benefits, you only get all the ill effects, or you won't get the real benefit that you have to get. Therefore, he says, these are people who know how to do sacrifice. Because it is not what you do, but how you do it. Now in the 9th chapter he says, Patram pushpam palam toyam yome bhaktya prayachati tadaham bhaktyu pahritam ashnami priyatatmanaha yat karoshi yadashnasi yajjuhoshi dadasi yat tapasyasi kaunteya tat kurushva madharpanam. It doesn't matter what you are giving. Yat karoshi, what you are doing. Yat karoshi yadashnasi yajjuhoshi dadasi. Whatever you may be sacrificing, whatever you may be giving, whatever you may be doing, tat kurushva mad arpanam. Do it as an arpanam to me. Then it becomes a yajna. Otherwise, it is only going to strengthen your ego. Please understand. So in other words, what he is trying to say is, in this portion, he is not telling you to do something separate. He is telling you to do the same thing that you've been doing throughout the day. Only thing, now you do it as an offering. Then it helps you to evolve. If you don't do it as an offering, it only increases vasanas. So what we say is, when you sit down in front of the mandir and you're doing puja, you have brought some flowers from the garden. and you kept it on a tray in front of the idol. You've taken bath, you come down, you sit down, you start the puja. You light the lamp and offer the flowers. Right? Flowers have fragrance, which means represents vasanas. Okay. When you're sitting down and offering the flowers to the Bhagavan, how do you offer? Do you pick the flowers like this with two of your fingers and then throw it? Shuklam, Bharadaram, Vishnu, Sashivaranam, Chaturbhujam. Do you do that? No. What are you doing? You nicely point your fingers down, take one flower, turn it upward, and then offer it at the feet of the Lord. Shuklam, Bharadaram, Vishnu, Sashivaranam, Chaturbhujam, Prasannavadanam, Dhyayet, Sarva Vignopasantaye. You do this, right? Now, what is happening is when your fingers are pointing down, it picks up the vasana. When your attention is upon the world going downward, you collect vasana. The same vasana, when you turn it upward, it drops. Are you with me? The same flower, you turn upward and it drops at the feet of the Lord. So the idea is what? Now what is happening? When you sweep the floor, when you light the lamp, everything is directing towards the lower, enhancing the ego. You understand? Now the whole thing, you turn the direction towards the divinity. When you turn the direction towards the divinity, what happens? The vasana drops. Remember this. How do we pick up vasana? Unconscious, unintelligent, constant thought flow picks up vasana, generates vasana. Unconsciously, unintelligently, you keep thinking about something, you develop vasana, impressions. How do you drop the vasana? Consciously, consistently, continuously, you direct towards the higher. Then the vasana drops. That's all. We've been constantly thinking about the world mechanically, without awareness. We are going on picking up vasanas. All our actions are picking up vasanas. But when the same thing, when I direct it towards the higher, I drop vasanas. So these people, they know how to do sacrifice. Means what? They have not changed anything. Nothing has changed. From morning till night, whatever you've been doing, you're doing the same thing. You're running the business, everything. Now what are you doing? Dedicating to the higher. That's all. You're doing it with arpana bhav. When you do it with arpana bhav, the vasanas dissolve. And that arpanam comes when? With knowledge. You understand that from the time you are born, as when you are even conceived, when you are in the mother's womb, food was provided to you through the mother. And as soon as you are born, mother's milk is readily available. Right? And in nature, you find oxygen, water, everything is provided for your survival. So when you become aware of all this, then you understand that I am indebted. I need to pay back. So whatever you are doing, same thing you will continue. But now the attitude is changed. What? I am going not to take, I am going to offer, give. That's all. Just the attitude changed. And when the attitude changed, agitation gone. When you go to take, more agitation. Isn't it? You always find out. Giver versus taker. Taker is always agitated. Giver is very calm, relaxed. He looks at it from the other person's point of view. So he says, therefore, they are all knowers of sacrifice. They simply change their attitude through knowledge. As a result, what happened? Their agitations reduce, their vasanas reduce, and they all spiritually evolve. So, by God's grace, today we have completed 12 yajnas till verse 30. Next week we'll continue with 31. Let's conclude the class. ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः